That's
Yay, you
okay.
finally let me unmute. Sorry.
All right.
Here.
So we'll acknowledge that Mr. David Hamill has logged in, but isn't able to confirm that it's him. But we have a quorum nonetheless.
Is Dave calling in via cell?
We don't know, and he dropped off, so we'll wait for him to catch back up.
Okay.
We'll jump into item 3, approval of minutes, and we've got 3 sets of minutes that were put together: June 18th, August 20th, and October 15th of this illustrious year, 2020.
Rich, we're still missing September. We've been given.
We didn't have a meeting in September.
Oh, okay.
That was the council. That was when you were in front of the council. Wasn't it? Yes, yes, it was.
I'll entertain a motion if you want to take a look at everything.
This is Jim. I make a motion to approve the 3 meeting minutes.
And I second the motion.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Jen?
There she is.
Who seconded that?
Bill,
McCusker.
Yes.
I second the emotion.
Miss Judge is considering her options.
Aye.
Aye, okay. That's unanimous. I vote to the affirmative as well. Motion passes. Thank you very much. We'll jump into item 4, correspondence and public comments. Rich, if you want to give us an update, have you received any correspondence over the past month? Anything that's noteworthy?
I have not received any correspondence this month.
Okay. Rob, I know you're here on mute. Anything noteworthy from your office?
The town has not received any correspondence related to bicycle and pedestrian issues. We do have one road issue. It deals with the possible acceptance of a road, but nothing related to bicycles or pedestrians.
Okay, thank you. And Rich, I think you said earlier there's nobody waiting from the public.
There's nobody in the public.
We anticipate somebody around 7 o'clock, 7:15. So if you wouldn't
That's
mind,
right.
Rich.
I'll keep an eye out.
Cool, thank you.
Thanks, Jen. All right, so that's item 4, no action. We'll run into, pull up my agenda again, run into item 5, business items, active issues and concerns. And just as an update for the BPAC, Jen and I were trying to set up item 5 into 2 main categories: active issues and concerns that we're working on as a group. And the second main category is the master plan and the project improvement plan, because as we know, this is our inaugural master plan and there's still work to be done on that. So jumping into item 5A, subsection I, Middlebridge Road. Rich, have there been any significant updates on the Middlebridge Road situation?
The signs have been ordered, so we're just waiting. We knew that the lead time was going to be up to 4 weeks, maybe more. So we're just waiting.
Okay.
Actually, if I may, I've got one thing on that I'd like to share with the committee. The Statistical Modeling and Analytical Research Tools Committee met with Carol Baker and Mike Souza about 2 weeks ago. And one of the things that came out of the discussion with Carol Baker and Mike at that meeting is a map of traffic accidents based on 5 years of traffic data in the police records. Now, the map is still a work in progress. There's some data issues that we're working through, but we have about 4,800 accidents that look to be good, solid geolocation data points. We have about 900 that need to be cleaned up. But It's a very interesting map, and if I can pull it up, I'm gonna go through my files, let you proceed with your meeting, but if I can pull it up, I'd love to share it with you, recognizing that it is a draft. It's going to be shared with the Statistical Modeling Committee later on tonight. So while I've got you on here, it would be worth seeing, because one of the things it does is it makes it perfectly clear that we have traffic accident issues all over the map. And it actually tends to show, this is a sort of personal thing here, but I've had conversations with folks who live on Middlebridge about my road, and they sort of poo-poo, you can't possibly have as many accidents as we do down on Middlebridge. Turns out we have more accidents on my road over the last 5 years than you did on Middlebridge.
Where's your road, Rob?
Stony Fort.
Oh,
So
Can I, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Rob, just because I've never had, oh, this is David. Sorry. Never mind.
So I'm going to shut up. I'm going to try to pull up that map for you guys, and I'll share it with you.
and Rob, did you say this was over 5 years?
Yeah, it's 5 years worth of data.
900 accidents
No,
on
no.
average per year?
Yeah, we're looking at a lot of accidents in South Kingstown. Let me pull up the map. You'll see the 4,800 that we've got. And we've got none.
That's on average 2-3 a day,
That's correct.
right? So
Which isn't that surprising when you think about it. I mean,
there's how many miles of road do we have?
150.
yeah.
Okay.
I'll pull it up. Please continue until I can find it.
Okay.
This is great, Rob. Thanks for sharing.
I had to put my pasta down. You got me. Okay. Looking forward to that scrumptious map. Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Rich, for the update on Middlebridge, and Jim, you're kind of our literal resident expert on Middlebridge. So.
Yep.
just,
So, Rich, if we can look at the locations, or I don't know, we were gonna hopefully do a walkthrough or something when you're ready to do that.
You know what, I don't know that we plan, I didn't plan on a walkthrough. I can certainly show you a map of where we were gonna put signs if you'd like.
Okay. I don't know if you want to bounce that off of people. I'm thinking of some of them, Karen and or Jim may want to say something. If I don't know how you want to do it, but that would just be a recommendation if we could.
All right, well,
There's the map.
Nope, this is Rob's map, so,
No, that's what I
all right.
understand. So each dot is an accident, Rob?
Holy moly.
Each dot is an accident over the last 5 years, having occurred in the last 5 years.
Okay.
Rob, what do you mean by accident?
So accident is defined as an accident involving, I believe it's $5,000 worth of damage or an injury.
Wow.
Holy, whoa.
Yeah.
Our biggest data problem here is this blue dot. There are 900 accidents that correspond to that blue dot, and that's clearly a problem.
What's that intersection?
It doesn't matter. I mean, it's down by the post road. It's not even on the road. It's just an errant point. Obviously, some of our officers have been geocoding to the wrong place.
Oh, okay. That's unfortunate.
Yeah, this is a draft map, but again, my point is you look at up here, this is Stony Fort. Look over here, this is Middlebridge. It makes, clear things that you just don't think about, because I mean, Wakefield is clearly where we have our accidents. We have a lot of accidents on Route 1.
Yeah, Route 1 surprises me actually, but wow.
I wonder how many of them are deer related too. I don't know why I think of that, but it just deer season, whatever. I was one of those statistics sort of at one point.
All right.
And then you see 138, so that's clear.
Yeah.
And then Kings.
10.
Yep.
Yep.
South Road is surprising to me. South Road is a lot more than I would have thought.
This is great, Rob.
It really is a neat map.
Wow.
Done. This is a draft. This is 4,800 points that we think are good. There's another 900 we need to clean up. But
Thanks.
Do you have a timestamp on each, Rob, that if you wanted to turn on just 2019 or 2018 or something?
Yes, and we also have characteristics of the accident, motor vehicle on motor vehicle, motor vehicle on bicycle, motor vehicle on pedestrian. We have
Okay,
a lot of data. There's a lot
Awesome.
of good information.
Wow.
Accidents by injury as opposed to damage, that kind of thing can be all can be done. Working toward it.
all right. Well, I think this would be great to overlay on our stuff and then based on that, see what they own. So that's good.
All right. It's good stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, on item 5A, subsection I, Middlebridge, got the update, and I think there's some follow-up coordination. Jim, you might follow up with Rich. Subsection double I or 2, the town CIP operating budget, and there was an emphasis or desire to have an emphasis on the bond that the voters approved, including some funding for traffic safety improvements. Maybe Rich, you want to describe what you think the programming is for that funding, the timeline, how we might be able to integrate with you or assist?
Well, we've actually included in the, as part of the CIP, I guess, it's projected, but we haven't identified any specific projects for that. Now, it's tough to say. I think that we have that discussion about what takes priority. I will give you an example of what we've gone through just this past month was that, we're repaving River Street, and it's really Suez is repaving River Street, but we're overseeing the repavement process just because that's what we do. But we wanted to do sidewalks there. Well, there's really not a lot of money. The sidewalks actually are in pretty good shape on River Street compared to some other streets, particularly like Columbia, let's say, for example. But we really don't. It's we estimated it out to be about $400,000. We just don't have those dollars to put towards that. We do, however, are thinking ahead, and we know that Columbia Street, as an example, has got to be redone. We did include the dollars as part of that, as part of the capital improvements budget, not until 23-24. Now, I believe, Jen, I think you mentioned, if you can correct me if I'm wrong, I thought it was Robinson Street.
Mhm.
So again, that road was going to be done. We had not included dollars for that, for additional sidewalks on Robinson. Now, if we were to find areas for additional sidewalks, perhaps that could be a place for it. But we haven't discussed specifically where that money goes or how that money's spent. It would have to be, a project that would get bid. We'd have to go, there'd have to be an RFP process to that. We'd have to talk to council about how those dollars are spent. It'd be part of that same bucket of money that we had, and we'd use it in the same way. But should this board, I suppose, have, a specific place that money wants to go, I think we should talk about that. But we have not, in the department, talked about how that money gets spent.
I actually, looking at Rob's map, and I think that one of the confounding principles, or one of the confounding things, is that a lot of those are state roads. And whenever we talk about, let's put some lines on the road or whatever, and the answer is, well, that's a state road. And I'd like to talk about, as part of what we're talking about now, is how do we get a better coordination with the state, so that in our town, the state roads going through it, we have a total say about what the deal is with that. So for instance, the Old Mountain Field, when the street light goes out where the crosswalk is, you have to basically call the state, although the town folks did a good job of taking care of that. But the space where the crosswalk is, how they have some lines saying, don't park your car here, so pedestrians won't get clipped. Everyone knows what I'm talking about.
Yep.
So it's not enough. Those I can tell you that I've been driving through there for years, and there's that has tons of people. It's a wonderful facility. It's it really is a tribute to the community, but that's a real hazard. And the just because someone doesn't get clipped doesn't mean it's doesn't need to get fixed. And so, how do we get the state to and maybe it already has happened? How do we get the state to integrate with us better, or do we need to?
Let me jump in. So just for parliamentarian reasons, we're talking about the town's capital improvement plan, the operating budget, and there was a focus on the bond that was recently approved. And my understanding is that this is specifically for town-owned assets. I don't want to drop your point, Dave. I want to get back to that because it's very important. So before we get back to the main discussion point, Rob or Rich, would you like to explain the town STIP process? Excuse me, the state STIP process and how you can prioritize state roads that are within the town of South Kingstown?
I'm not, you know what, I don't know what the answer is to that. I don't know if Rob has a better answer than that, but I don't know what the answer. I mean, no, I know that when we have certain issues, we contact the state, we deal with those issues specifically. But as far as improvements projects, it's always, going to the state, what is it, traffic review board, and approvals happen through that. Somebody sponsors it in effect. We can certainly do that. If you think that bump outs are something that has to happen at let's just say, for example, I know you might want to get back to that issue, but that's a good example. If we were to do bump outs at the ball field, that would be something we would petition to the state to do. They would get it into their capital improvements program, and then they would make those additions as they can. But I don't know if Rob has a different answer.
So the STIP is part of a federal regulatory scheme. In order to get federal funds to maintain roads, states have got to have a planning process, and they have to maintain a list of prioritized projects in a plan, the STIP, the State Transportation Improvement Plan. The State Transportation Improvement Plan is a fixed plan, except that the state periodically reviews that plan. And it reviews that plan by opening up for public comment possible changes to the plan. We will entertain changes in this area. We're thinking about doing these things, and ask for public input. When the state opens the Transportation Improvement Plan for public comment, towns get to comment just like everybody else. And we tend to have a little bit more weight because we've got the engineering crew to sort of describe things. We can produce nifty little maps that show where the accidents have been and that kind of thing. But we are really just a public commenter like everybody else.
That's
something that has happened in the past is that, as an example, Silver Lake Bridge was an issue. It had some serious issues with the integrity of the bridge. We had to immediately go in. But because it was already in that program, we were able to get DOT to say, well, you guys will have to cover the cost of fixing it now because it's not presently on our radar, but we will help you with the design. And they prepared design plans. They had their consultant do design plans like within weeks. So there are ways that we can leverage against that particular program, but we have to get it into that program in order to get anything done anyway.
And I'd like to add to that. And thank you, Rob and Rich. There's a public component to this process. It's called the Transportation Advisory Committee. I was a member of that committee about 10 years ago. So Rob's correct. When the State Department of Transportation and Division of Planning decide to solicit public input, they typically reach out to every municipality in the state and the tribes and ask, and actually the university, and ask for their ranking. So to your point, or to your question, David, when the state of Rhode Island solicits input, I think we would be a good resource perhaps for the town to screen and review our master plan and our BPIP, and to offer suggestions to the town to consider taking forward as part of a formal request to the State Division of Planning for, new or repeat projects to have the state consider for funding. It has been, every other year. Sometimes it's been every 4 years. With COVID, I'm not sure where we're at right now. I know that Department of Transportation and Division of Planning will sometimes, on their own, for their own needs, if it's a big transit project with RIPTA, they will make modifications to the STIP. So it's just something that I think all municipalities need to be vigilant about, and just when that time comes around, we need to, get activated and assist the town staff in looking at what we think priorities are on state roads.
So Rich, I have a question. You mentioned that you have not yet identified specifics for the for the CIP and operating plan. Is there a deadline that you need to identify those by? And if so, when would you anticipate that needing to be presented to town council or Rob?
Rob, I think you're better to answer that. The dollars that are coming out of this bond will be available to us for how long?
Well, we actually, I didn't participate in the phone call today, but the finance director was meeting with our financial advisor. They've scheduled a second follow-up meeting. We don't know exactly what our schedule for issuing bonds is going to be. We won't issue bonds until we've identified the projects, but we do have some projects that are ready to go, and those projects we need to start, thinking about the schedule for issuing the bonds. What had been contemplated in the bond was $350,000 for improvements to bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure, safety infrastructure. So it was the three components. I want to be careful there. Bicycle, pedestrian, and safety. So safety includes car on car in theory. We have to make sure that we've identified the projects, and then we can go out to bond, and the funds are available for us without a time limit. If we had $350,000 worth of projects tomorrow, we could probably have funding for them and have shovels in the ground February, March, very, very quickly. The money.
Are we talking engineering studies? I mean, it sounds like you're kicking around some ideas on certain projects. So is it anything you can
The
share?
engineering study is definitely one that we've talked about. I know an RFP has been developed, which can talk about that in a minute. But in terms of what's left over, there's still going to be a good chunk of change, $300,000 worth of safety improvements potentially. And we don't have that list. I mean, I think the BPIP is one of the places to start. I think that the files that Rich has on traffic concerns is another one, another source of potential projects. There's a lot of work to be done. We know that there's actually tens of millions of dollars worth of safety projects we could do in town. So this is not, we're not going to have trouble identifying projects. We're going to have trouble identifying places where relatively small amounts of money are going to have a big impact. That's the trick.
Okay.
But as far as the CIP goes, we can hold and will hold because the deadline for the CIP this year and every year is December 1st. The capital improvement program is updated every December 1st. Now, through the budget process up until final adoption, which is in June, June 1st, I think is the deadline. The council can modify the CIP. It becomes part of the budget, and they can modify the CIP through the budget process. So the short answer to what's the deadline is next week. That will be addressed as a placeholder, $350,000 for traffic safety projects. And those may, if they are defined, be further defined and codified by the town council during the budget process this year.
hopefully this is not too silly a question. Is the operative phrase there safety?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, but yeah, we're not looking at this point. I mean, there's not enough money to do a bridge over Route 1 or anything like that. So, although that's safety too. I mean, to be honest with you, it's hard to talk about transportation without talking about transportation safety. I mean, it's those two concepts are, so tied that if you've got a transportation idea, it's a transportation safety idea. I guarantee it.
And Rob, I just have a question about the proposed high school relocation.
Mhm.
And I just was wondering how much we want to be aware as a committee of those plans in terms of bike and walker access to the school. And so my question to you, Rob, is would that be something that the school committee would be, or the school district would be in charge of like all the spending with that? Or is that something,
So it's very
what's the
interesting.
line between the town and the school?
Yeah, so it's a really interesting point. I think Rich may actually have a copy of the transportation study that was done by the engineer hired by RGB to examine the traffic flow on Curtis Corner and South Road. Rich, do you have a copy of that?
I may. Let me see
Somewhere.
if I can find something.
No, it's all right. We don't need to bring it up now, but it might be a good subject to discuss at the.
I do have the traffic study that was done for that project, right?
So it might be a good thing to get that to this committee so they can look at it for the next meeting, because there are implications for bicycle and pedestrian access to the proposed Curtis Corner location.
Okay.
That'd be a good thing for you guys to review.
Rob, a silly question, but if RGB had a traffic engineer study Curtis Corner and South Road, was there one also done for Kingstown Road, aka 108 and Curtis Corner?
No, well, yes, only the intersection though. They were looking
This
at.
would include, this would include the intersection in South
Right.
Road. Yeah, the intersection with South Road.
Thanks.
All right, this is awesome stuff. And for future consideration, let's try to bring up new items under item 7. Let's get through some of our business here. But I can also say, Kateri, thanks for bringing that up. I didn't know there was a traffic study performed right outside my neighborhood. I would love to look at it. So if I could get back to the CIP, I understand that there is a deadline. The town staff will be submitting something in the next week or so. I guess my my aspiration is to engage the town staff in terms of our BPIP. I certainly understand the $300,000 after we do the traffic study, $300,000 for traffic safety improvements. I have to say that I am also very interested in the work that's proposed in Matunic, which was the lion's share of that bond. And we understand that there's core infrastructure that's going to absorb a lot, if not all of that bond money. But there is a village study in Matunic, and there were very specific elements as to how traffic and parking and pedestrians would be managed. I'd like to understand if there's an opportunity to discuss those elements that may or may not be part of this this bond.
Yeah, so the Matunic Road Matunic Beach Road protection seawall will be the subject of a resolution before the council on Monday night, next Monday night. You'll probably hear the owner of the Ocean Mist talk about the need to preserve the village integrity, and the council will be considering whether or not to sell the parcels that were acquired with federal highway dollars to do phase 1 of that project, whether to sell those. And there's going to be discussion about how best to accelerate the construction of phase 2 of that seawall. So I'd suggest that Monday night, if there's any particular concerns about the impact on the road, parking, or the village character, Monday night would be a good time to comment on it.
Thank you. Did anybody else have any comments on the Matunic Beach infrastructure piece?
Just that the ocean mist has sanctifying grace and will never go out to sea. So don't worry about it.
What was that, Dave?
The ocean mist has sanctifying grace and will never go out to sea, even though the water laps up the floorboards during rough seas.
I've been there when the waves have been pounding underfoot. It's a little creepy.
Yes, I was.
Well, that's
That-
true. The
that
ocean
is
mist
the-
will never go. They'll never go out to sea. The sea will come to the ocean
Yes.
mist.
But that seems to be the linchpin of the whole thing, right? It's the ocean mist.
Well,
Someone's going to write a great book. Thanks, Trump.
on this specific item, I think I want to make the connection that there's a bicycle pedestrian master plan. There are village studies, and I think this is part of one of the core responsibilities of this group to help knit together these various plans when the opportunity arises. So as Rob said earlier, it could be tens of millions of dollars worth of potential infrastructure improvements out here, but things happen one project at a time. So I'll be looking forward to paying attention to that council meeting on Monday, and perhaps the BPAC can make some comments on the program moving forward. If I could move on to item 5A, subsection 3, placement of speed feedback signs throughout town. This is a remnant item that we were talking about several months ago. Rich, I didn't know if you were still looking for any insights from us, or did you have enough corridors in mind?
Well, like I've mentioned, we have three. It'll be, of course, Matunic, Middlebridge Road, Broad Rock, and Matunic Beach Road. So we don't know where they're going to go on those other two roads. We just, I've thought a little bit more closely about Middlebridge. I've got a couple spots that were decided upon, between the Director of Public Services and Highway and me.
Okay. All right. Well, I mean, if there's anything you need from us, let us know. I don't think we need to carry this forward on the next agenda item.
Thank you very much for getting. I think that's great to have those electronic signs. That, at least people have the opportunity of being more aware.
These signs are going to be real mobile in a sense that we could just, it's a driven pole. We can move it. If we start to see things change a little, or we think we got a better location, we can move them. So it's a little bit flexible for us. The other great thing is I can go down there with my phone and I can dump data, and we can really understand the volume. We can understand the speeds, and we'll have a better look at the 85th percentile. We always talk about the 85th percentile, but we'll have a real good look at it. It's over a long period of time. So I'm really looking forward to it, I think, just from the analytical part of it. So I'll let you know when we get them, and I'll let you know when we start dumping data.
Great. Thank you. In the interest of time, going to move on to the next item, traffic comment study, the potential to discuss the scope with the BPAC and if we might be able to review it.
You know what? I don't have it going yet
Okay.
as far as I want to. I've had other things going out. We had a TMDL RFP. We've got a few things going out, so it's in the works. It's in the works.
Okay. Thanks, Rich.
So I'm gonna have to leave you for another meeting, but enjoy. Have a good one.
Okay, Rob.
Thanks,
Rob.
Rob.
Bill, did you have a comment or? Okay, all right. Okay. Okay, the last item under this section A was anticipated schedule for repaving. I think we started to touch on this earlier. I think Rob was saying that the bond proceeds might become available once you know what the projects are. And Rich, I mean, do you tend to try to roll things out for summer?
Well, we have 3 roads that are gonna be done this year, but it's gonna carry to the springtime. So remember that our fiscal year is, that July 1st to June 30th. So we'll have until June to take care of Torrey Road, Stedman Court, and River Street. River is being done shortly. In fact, it should have been done this week. They put us off. So now we're hoping that the 30th of November, the weather permitting, it'll be done. It'll begin that day. Stedman Court will happen maybe this fall as well. Torrey will be put off until the springtime. Next year, we'll be looking at Old North Road, Moonstone Beach Road, and Frank Ave, which is in pretty tough shape. Subsequent years, Warden's Pond, there's a portion there that has to get done. Green Hill Beach Road. I know that we talked a little bit about Rodman and some of those roads there. Those will be done. I believe I mentioned 23, 24, Columbia Street. Sidewalks will have to be done on Columbia Street. Rodman perhaps as well. Gravel Hill Road, Jen. 24, 25.
Hey, thanks, by the way, for addressing the
Yeah,
curve
wait a minute.
that I swear people go over that double line on that curve and you can't see who's coming, and
Okay.
open it up a lot more. So, and the drainage. So that was a big help. Thank you.
So Kenyon Ave sometime 25, 26, hopefully, as long as our budget stays on track. So that's where we are for some of these roads. The Oaks, all the roads in the Oaks are going to get done from 25 through 27.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, no, thanks, Rich. I think the reason why I put this out here as an agenda item is, knowing that the town needs to have their capital improvement plan prepared and submitted on and around, the beginning of December. I think as far as our internal kind of thought process is concerned, perhaps the BPAC should be helping to look at the next year's projects in the summertime timeframe. And if we had any recommendations from our master planning or the BPIP that we'd want you to consider for these corridors, you could take that under consideration and then roll that into your upcoming December submission. I think that's one of my goals is to make sure that that interaction takes place with sufficient time for you guys to figure out whether or not it's within your scope, if you need additional funding support, or if it's just something you're not able to take on because of time or permitting or what other constraints there may be.
Yeah. Now, are you talking specifically about pavement projects?
Well, I mean paving, but I also would like to add in there, I mean, without trying to get too much into your business, if you're doing a restriping project or you're going to do some replacement signage, there could be corridors that are important to us where we'd like to make the suggestion that there's a modification on striping or signage, which is a low cost item.
Well, but I'll keep that in mind because restriping happens normally later in the year. It'll happen sometime in the spring. They'll get going with striping. It's a contract that we have that's just a lump dollar amount, and then we throw out a list of priority roads for that. And that usually happens sometime in the spring. I can certainly discuss. We can at least come together about general issues that we see could be resolved with striping. That's, I think, a good approach. And that'll happen more closer to the spring. What's up, Jim?
So, Rich, do you have a map that has them on it? Because I think I was just looking at the master plan. If we can overlay some of these maps, I think it'll come into play maybe we have an idea of what we want to do and you're one street over, and maybe an opportunity to move our line, or you could at least, we'll at least comment on it versus what we have in the master plan. If not, I'll sit with you and we'll just take a highlighter, a virtual highlighter online and do it.
A map for what? For road striping?
Or know where you're going to do the repairs. So then we can just kind of, for the other folks in the group, we can marry it with, we have like high transit corridors and other things that we have in our plan. We'll just superimpose it on that. And I think it'll help us kind of see where maybe there's opportunities. It's just a quick kind of, one of these type of things. You can line it up.
Yeah, I mean, we do coordinate with GIS to tell, it's a color code map of, the 6 years out where roads are going to be redone. I mean, is
Okay.
that sort of what you're saying?
Yeah. So if you have that and can share it with us, that would be appreciated.
Yeah, I would have to have Carol update it, but let me talk to our GIS and see if we can update.
Okay.
It hasn't been updated in years, but we can certainly do that. I can even show you what's been done in the past. I mean, there is a little bit of a science to it, I guess. We do look at roads that, the worst roads around, and we do try to address them. But the roads that we have already addressed, we have a very systematic list of those. It's easy enough to map them out and color code it. We can I can try to pull something together on that.
All right. If not, like I said, we could just do it quickly online and just mark it up easy on a PDF.
All right.
I have a question related to the repaving. Do drivers drive faster after the road's repaved?
Yeah, I would say.
I do.
Yeah. So someone mentioned signage, and it just seems like that should be part and parcel of any repaving, is to make sure that there's good signage about the speed limit, and maybe have some police details assigned to educate folks the first couple of months.
Or is our traffic calming thing that we can save money on paving? Is that what you're implying, Dave?
Well, what
Potholes save lives.
yeah, I was there are a couple of roads where I do have to. It's funny you should say that. I was not inferring anything except that having people educated not to. You see that beautiful smooth road, and it's like taking off in a small plane, but nothing like a bumpy road to slow cars down.
Oh,
yeah.
When they repaved Stony Fort, man, I tell you, when the college kids discovered that was like Warp 8. So
I'm going to
Yeah,
drag a
right.
knee on Stony Fort with my motorcycle.
mm.
So
Well-
we do have somebody as an attendee, Ken.
Okay, that's great timing because we are going into section 5B. And Jen, I think you had somebody that might be joining us from, was it Grossmart?
Yeah, CJ.
Oh, cool.
So if you could let this person in, Rich, that might be our guest. You want to drive, Jen?
Sure. Hey, CJ, how are you?
I'm good. How's everybody doing?
Good. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Yeah.
Welcome to the South Kingstown BPAC. And Rich Bourbonnais is, he's helping facilitate as well. He's our landscape architect / civil engineer for the Department of Public Service here. So thanks for joining us tonight. Everybody, I've known CJ for some time. And when we first started our master plan and we started talking about complete streets, CJ's been very helpful in offering suggestions and recommendations, and also including previous projects and experiences. So I'm excited that he's attending tonight, just so we can bring him up to date in terms of where we're at, and we can just have him listen in on a conversation on what our anticipated potential next steps as we go to plan out our public outreach effort. He's also put together a draft of a PowerPoint that I think would be very helpful in terms of keeping it simple and helping define what Complete Streets is all about when we do have our public outreach. So CJ, thank you very much. I'll let you just take it from here.
Sure.
We're a laid back group, so. it's
Okay. Yeah, you want me to share the presentation?
Yeah, sure, that'd be great.
All right, cool. All right, can people see that?
Yep.
All right, cool. Yeah, thanks for having me. So this is, I've been giving these presentations for a couple years to various types of groups around the state who are kind of thinking about complete streets or want to learn about complete streets. Some of those include just some like kind of resident organizations in Newport, city or town councils. Recently, I've been giving them to the Portsmouth Town Council and Portsmouth Planning Board, and they're looking at an ordinance over there as well. So I've kind of tested this out. It has some other components that I've scratched to keep it a little shorter, just to give you a little sort of sense of it. So I'll just kind of run through it really quick. Oh, let's see. There we go. Yeah, what are complete streets? They're, you know, streets for everybody, no matter who they are or how they travel. And if you want to like add any comments or questions at any time, just please speak up. So my presentation really focuses on instilling the concept of complete streets and frankly making it not so scary. I think a lot of especially like elected officials and some staff have this concept in their head that complete streets means, you know, every street is going to have protected bike lanes and sidewalks and like be multi-million-dollar complete overhauls. And so this really is aiming to like make the concept seem more like the philosophy and the kind of way of approaching a street project that it really is. So so here we're covering, you know, complete streets are streets that are going to accommodate all users, all modes, and all abilities. Also important to remember that Rhode Island, even more than the rest of the country, is aging really, really rapidly. The country is as a whole, but Rhode Island's sort of at the top of the list or near the top of the list. And one thing I like to talk about is that, to me, you know, if a street isn't very safely, comfortably, and conveniently accommodating our folks that have mobility challenges, which often include our older residents, then it's not a complete street and it's not an acceptable street design. So, you know, complete streets are going to have these three qualities at the bare minimum: being safe, feeling comfortable, and being convenient for folks to get around. And we basically want to avoid this type of situation. Obviously, this is more of just a simple ADA situation, but I think this image really makes an impact with a lot of folks. So this is an example of, you know, a complete street. Kind of just has a lot of the elements that you think of when you think of a complete street. Also looks like it could almost be in Rhode Island to a degree. I don't know where this is from, though, I'll say that. And we know that Rhode Islanders really like when pictures are from places that they know. So I try in this presentation to have a lot of those. And I think this is a good.
Too.
What's that, Jen?
We'll work on building up on that too with images on certain streets that we all feel are important when we do have our public meetings. So we'll be able to share images and send them to you to build on this as well.
Perfect. Yeah, I grabbed a few. Jen's seen this. I grabbed a few from like Google Maps as a starting place. But yeah, that would be best. If you guys have like individual sort of viewpoints or streets you can take good pictures of, especially if you get good pictures of folks using it in the way that illustrates kind of our point. That's even better. So I love this picture because of how horrible this looks and because of the irony of it being called Paradise Road. So I use this in all of these. Plus, I think we all have, this could be anywhere USA, right? Like we've all driven on places like this. So I just grabbed a few from Google Maps that I think illustrate just a couple of like complete streets-esque problems. And none of these, you know, when I give these, I in no way try to like shame places or anything like that. I do illustrate. So I mean, I personally live in Providence without a car. So if I want to visit anywhere, I have to take RIPTA, or when I rent a car, but I usually just take RIPTA. So I usually make the point of like, do you want to exclude the 20% of people in Providence who don't own a car from coming to your community, and 10% of people in Rhode Island don't own a car. So you're excluding 10% of the entire state from visiting your businesses. So I kind of have some of these photos just again from Google Maps, just poking around. I find this one interesting, and I don't know how up to date this is, but I don't see why anyone would really be walking on the street. I don't know what's all the way down the street, but it does say "Watch for Children" on that yellow warning sign, which I just think is, again, I don't know South Kingstown well enough, but I just found that really interesting. So I grabbed
That's
it.
so you can hit them.
Right.
It's,
Now, there's a neighborhood up ahead, so that's
Okay.
what that's for.
Gotcha. Thank you. Yeah, I assumed so, but given it looks kind of industrial here on the left, so. But again, yeah, this just kind of jarring. Just the sidewalks ending are always a good sort of visual stimulant. And I found this interesting because I think I've actually walked this. I just find it interesting because it's on Main Street and it's just down from a business district, and there are bus stops here, and you can see this is a good place where I like to illustrate what a desire line is. And I know that people, once they kind of have that, once they know what that weird dirt strip is and that are next to streets, they know that it's basically just a begging for a sidewalk, that they notice them more often. So anyway, this is just a few photos, but yeah, I'd much more welcome any photos that you guys have. And one thing I didn't include in this version of the presentation, but which I sometimes do depending on the crowd, is immediately following this section, I have a little section that's called "Would you want to walk here?" It's best when it's in person, but basically it's just a series of images of both good and bad streets. I mean, like, in my opinion, like very walkable, very inviting streets that you just sort of like, you see, it's more of a test of like, okay, what's your visceral reaction to this street? And it'll be one, maybe kind of like this. Would you want to walk here? Not could you walk here, but would you want to walk here? And then people will say yes or no. So I find that useful too. So that's something that we could throw in with that if that seems worthwhile. And for that, some good like some nice, and there's plenty to choose from, but some nice, like lovely to walk photos.
Great one, CJ, because it's not far from one of the middle school future potential or high school sites, and it is lacking connection. So I think that's an excellent photo right there.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Yeah, so I sometimes have that section where it'll be like, would you want to walk here? And there'll be some photos from different size communities and different just kind of walking environments. And I think it helps people conceptualize like just the sort of feeling of a place being walkable, and not just talking about like death counts or money or anything like that. Making it more
both,
like a human.
Both Main Street and Kingstown Road are both state roads. I mean, is there?
Yeah, that's often a problem, I know.
Yeah, do we want to, I don't know if it needs to focus on town roads, or do you want to, it doesn't make a difference. It may not make a difference.
That's a great question. Honestly, I would definitely prefer to have non-state owned roads. And the reason is that an ordinance can help get RIDOT to, when they do projects, to make it more complete streetsy, but it definitely doesn't guarantee it. And so the real power of an ordinance wouldn't be sort of like exemplified, you know what I mean, on a state owned road. This is a thing in Portsmouth, just by the way, I think I told this to Jen, but it was like a huge thing, the state owned road issue, because I mean, to the degree where their first draft of their ordinance went so far as to list individually each state owned road as being exempt from their ordinance, because they just didn't feel like fighting with RIDOT. And I have a section here later that kind of touches on this issue. But so for that type of reason, I think that having local roads makes more of an impact. Although maybe one state-owned road is good to illustrate the point of like, this might, an ordinance would kind of give you more tools in the toolbox with working with RIDOT to make this better. So I would go with what you guys thought was useful. I'm happy to accommodate this to whatever seems most useful.
CJ, we were kind of glossing over this beginning of the meeting, and South Kingstown, some of the key areas are state roads. So I wouldn't move. I would have plenty of town roads, but I wouldn't shy away from the state roads.
Okay.
Particularly seeing Main Street's a state road.
Right.
So,
And I
But
know.
one thing I'd add to Dave's point, however, is that, I mean, I worked at DOT when this project, the Main Street project was underway, and there was a negotiation there that gets into what a lot of people consider a historic district. So they dropped the concrete sidewalks. It was a mistake because clearly, I mean, after the project was done, the desire lines continued, or people need to walk.
Right.
But I think what's interesting is you could show this state road and see what happened, and then you could show old Tower Hill Road. And when you have engagement of the community, we can make substantive change in the design and not always have a marked increase in the price, but I think a significant impact on the quality of the overall product.
Yeah. Excellent. Yeah. Excellent point. Yeah. I didn't know that about Main Street. It's interesting to know. Yeah. Points taken. And, unavoidably in most Rhode Island communities, some of the busiest thoroughfares are state-owned roads, more than I think people even realize, myself included. So I think because it's unavoidable, I think maybe you're right just to include these and then maybe some other local roads as well. So that sounds good. And then I'd like to just include just a quick skim, frankly, of just sort of the proven different types of benefits that come from more walkable communities and streets. So I have this slide up that, again, just kind of really briefly covers a few. Okay, so then I like to kind of skip ahead into how do we make this happen? Once people have an idea of what complete streets means and what it actually looks, and if we do the yes, no, would you want to walk here a bit? What complete streets feel like a little bit. I mean, it's virtual, so to whatever degree you can. So again, with my presentation, I like to really hammer home that it's, the biggest thing that people get freaked out by is the cost, more than anything else. So the phrase I probably say the most is like paint and plastic in my presentation, just showcasing the amount of stuff you can do with just paint and plastic, or like a teeny intervention here. So we have, that's Fountain Street on the left. That's the state's first protected bike lane. And I like to tell the plunger story. I don't know if you guys all know that story. This was painted with no vertical separation for a while. And then someone bought 100 plungers, like $100 store plungers, and just showed up overnight and stuck them down one by one along the whole stretch. And it made like national news. And then the city was like, all right, fine. Yep. Like, you caught us. We'll put the bollards in. So then they put these plastic bollards in. Pretty hilarious. But I like to point out too that those are removable. They go away in the wintertime. For people that are concerned with like plowing and stuff like that, they do pick up and leave. We have, of course, a pedestrian island in the middle, and then more paint and plastic on the right, which gives me an opportunity to talk about turn radius and how important that is, and kind of just cutting down car speed while extending pedestrian space and shortening the crosswalks, and the added benefit of it just sort of looking kind of lively and attractive. And again, just the far left and right, just paint and plastic. Oh, okay, wait. Yeah. Hold on. There we go. So I have a couple of projects here too that I like to show. On the left is one from Connecticut, where this is like a pop-up, just a testing out an urban trail kind of project here, where it's just it's paint and plastic, but even those green bars are actually just mats, so they don't even have to be painted down. They're just pull them right up at the end of the day. And you have someone out there kind of asking people how they like it, how, counting how many people are using it. And then in the middle, we have, that's actually me at the table, and that's sort of activating this alleyway also in Connecticut. That's just chalk and like some games and stuff, but we like spoke with people and asked them, what they'd like to see, if this was to become sort of a permanent, like more of a plaza type space. And then another example of just a project I found, a picture of extending the sidewalk. So again, this is sort of illustrating you can do so with paint and plastic very, very temporarily, like for a day, and get a lot of data to back up, this. If you're thinking about doing an urban trail, or you're thinking about, whatever it is, you can literally just plop it down and see what it looks and feels like and get responses from people before you dedicate money to anything.
Rich, these are some of the things that I think would be extremely helpful in terms of mini pilot projects around town. And if by any chance we might be able to use some of that bond money towards some of these to be able to get some quick responses, quick data, and then make some quick action, I think it would be great to try and vet that. So I think, what CJ is presenting can really speak numbers for our community as well, for something that's quick 24-hour and get feedback. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, yeah, I mean, but those would be things I think that this board would push and suggest. It's not that's not going to come from my department. It would be something that we would work with you on. But if you came up with pilot projects, and then the thought is that that's a good use of the dollars, and then we would certainly put support behind it. But it's not like we're going to go out and find these. I mean, you'd have to identify what you want to do.
Yeah, and to that point, Rich, I think we have our BPIP, and I mean, even though we're talking about the master planning, part of the agenda right now, I think following up on the earlier agenda items about the capital improvement plan, knowing that you guys are fixed in terms of what your raw infrastructure programming is, we like to understand what those corridors are. And as Jim had said earlier, if we know in advance the corridors that you're working on, just as far as replacing, failed pavement, for example, then we can start to weave in those BPIP elements that we think are relevant to that area, that corridor. And I think, Jen, that ties back to what you're exactly getting at. It could be that every year we have a succession of fortuitous improvements, complete streets improvements, paint and plastic in corridors, because public services is already going to be doing work in a specific area. Beyond that, what I heard from Rob and the timing of the bond, I mean, we have a placeholder for about $300,000 for traffic safety improvements. I think what we have to do is, take a close, hard look at our BPIP, and perhaps with that accident data, come up with, a palette of low cost, high impact projects. And summertime is a great time to get this type of work done. So maybe we give ourselves, like 4 or 5 months of analysis time and coordination time, and try to get something back to Rich in enough time for them to actually be able to get something done by, let's say, before next fall.
I agree, but I also thought I heard Rob say certain things have not yet been identified. So when I hear things like haven't identified, I feel like there's still elements that are maybes. Maybe I misinterpreted that. So if something can be piggybacked and rolled into things that are sort of on the front burner, so to speak, Rich, as you've already mentioned, and to Kenny's point, that would be great.
I also, I really like your idea, Jen, to do these, and CJ, the presentation of these pilot programs, pilot projects, I think are really exciting, and I think could be part of our community outreach as well. So I think, while I agree with you, Kenny, the idea of being methodical and, following through on the improvement plan of the town, I do think that it would be exciting for people in town to see movement. And I think when when you hear these pavement projects that are, 2025, 2026, 2027, there is a real desire on, I think, all of our parts to see something. And I just think, they can't be very expensive, these programs, these projects that would just get something, I don't know, just show the town people that there's movement and we don't have to wait 10 years, perhaps.
Consideration of certain things and the inclusion of that with the feedback, I think, of everyone who is interested and involved, I think would speak volumes.
Mhm.
The budget for pavement is very limited. We only do 2 or 3 roads a year, or about a mile, or maybe a little more than a mile a year. It's maybe up to a mile and a half or 2 miles, but I don't know that I would wait on that alignment to align with whatever you have. I mean, I think that if this board decides that you want to start looking at pilot projects in some areas, if it's safety related, which I think they probably are, what I'm looking at, I think are more safety related. I mean, you might want to look more towards, the accident data and come up with a plan of action there. And, we can look at the road pavement program, but I wouldn't look at every road. I mean, I'm telling you what we're doing next year. If you want to include some element on that works towards this, that's fine. But, the pavement program is very limited, and it's also in flux. It changes. This year we had 4 or 5 roads, and we ended up doing, last year I should say we ended up doing 1. So, I don't know if that I think that you got to look at all the other elements before you start looking at whether pavement. We can just look to see if pavement marries with whatever you come up with, is what I'm saying.
So
Rather
I'll
than
add to
letting the pavement lead the cart, I think.
Rich. I think I'll add to that. We absolutely want to know every single project that you tend to touch every year, because if it is a road that needs bicycle or pedestrian or traffic safety improvements, we want to weigh in before you put plans and specs together. I say this because that did not happen when the town repaved Matunic Beach Road, and it is an airstrip. People can do 100 miles an hour down that road. That was a missed opportunity. And I remember having discussions with the former town manager. He was wrong. We had a back and forth about where the fog line should go, and they failed to take action. I know you're not like that, but I'm going to make this very
No,
clear.
I absolutely am. And
Yeah.
I'm kidding, Ken. But keep in mind that the pavement out of engineering and highway, there's not a lot going on over the next 6 years. I mean, it's a chunk of money, but it doesn't go real far. So everybody has access to the CIP program, and you can see where we're going every year. If you pull something out of that and say, listen, we really want to talk a little more about this or that or this, then I think we need to do that. But the fact is that the information's there. But I can't sit here and go through every inch of road every time that,
that's okay. So I think if I heard you correctly, I think there's 2 things that'll happen. You have a published set of roads. I mean, you've got to get a list together for next week. Rob said, first week of December. So what we'll do to support you guys, because you have to maintain infrastructure, is we'll screen those corridors and we'll offer up suggestions. And in addition to that, and I think this is Kateri and Jen's position as well. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff we can do all throughout town and in niche, neighborhoods, areas that are of concern for a variety of reasons. And we will separately not only aggregate that information as it's already together in our BPIP, but I think this is the intention of this agenda item. We have to now prepare to have something like CJ has on this presentation to start hosting these community meetings. We have to start inspiring some of these local neighborhoods as to what is reasonably within reach. And we have some seed money. We have about $300,000, and there's a good chance we can make some headway And it won't be in the 5 to 6 year time frame. It could be in the 1 year, time frame.
Well, I think it should be. I think it should be. But spending that kind of money often you may require, RFPs and things like that. We'd have to put it out to bid. There may be design work that's necessary. I don't know. But so in the meantime, let me, I like Jim's idea of getting the map updated. And let me get a map to you that helps guide you on what the 6 year, at least the 6 year projection on this of our roadway projects. I think that should at least get it going anyways, right?
I think
CJ,
that'd be great. Ken, do you know, we never put the BPIP list on the map, have we?
I don't think so.
Yeah, so then I think from that, like I said, I'll at least do the marker version of it, and then maybe Rich, you can help me see if we can somehow get that downloaded into another layer on the GIS or whatever, and then that'll help you, I think, see what's on there.
Yeah, let me talk to Carol about that.
All right.
Rich, is it possible to put a link to our SKBPEC master plan on the town website?
Yeah, well, it's on your site now.
Oh, okay, great, thanks.
I think I sent out an email to that effect. In fact, it was updated. Jim helped me get it updated last week, I think,
Okay, great.
but it's there. It's at the bottom of the page. We gave it a new title, so we can add other links in there, by the way. If you guys have other things you want to include, we can do a whole list of links and other important data that you want to link to, but it's up there anyways.
Great,
Yep.
thank you.
CJ, I have a question for you with these pilot projects. What is the interaction with, I don't know, I'm just thinking of like insurance and traffic control and stuff like that. Do you know, could you tell us a little bit about the logistics of a project?
That's a great question. I don't know what the insurance scene is like with doing some of these. I could find out for you.
Okay.
I have a feeling it's covered. So these are all projects that are, at least the one on the left in the middle that I know personally of are were covered through a city, like a town planning. So I think that it's covered under the city's like insurance policies.
Okay.
For the one in the middle, we didn't have to have police detail because it was already kind of just like blocked off. The one on the left, I don't think they had police detail either. I think because they might have had someone like check in, but I don't think there was someone stationed there or anything like that. So I think maybe depending on the intensity of the project, you might need something. But I think generally, if you have, some vertical separation and stuff, it's not a necessary component of the event, is my sense.
Okay.
Yeah, but that's a
Thank
great,
you.
that would be something to definitely make sure before doing any of these, obviously.
Yeah.
All right, so I'll try to zoom through just the rest of the presentation. So does anybody recognize this?
Broad Street.
Yeah, Broadway, I think. But yeah, yep, in Newport. It's one of my favorite. I think it's one of the best examples of complete streets in the state. It's relatively recent. I know that the construction was like a huge pain, but I think the end result is pretty fantastic. And the reason I like to have this is just off of Google Maps too. You should probably tell. So it's natural just environment of people. But the reason I like to include this often is it has like everything that there is, especially if you're talking about green infrastructure too. Obviously we have a crosswalk with even different pavers. We have ADA compliance. We have vertical separation that has lighting built into it, which I think is amazing. Lighting, by the way, is like the #1 solution to pedestrian crashes in the country, better lighting. We have permeable pavers on the right, those bricks. We have bike parking, we have a bench, we have trees, we have trash, we have cafe seating. So it has like everything that there is. So I like to include this just to kind of showcase, almost like if you took your toolkit of complete street stuff and like threw it at one sort of bump out here, this is what you get. So I like to include this picture. So I like to reiterate a few times that a complete street is just simply a street that safely, comfortably, and conveniently accommodates those who are using it. I'd like to go over just the really basics of what, now that we know what complete streets are and what they look like and how to make them happen to a degree. You know, what is an ordinance? What does an ordinance mean, especially with complete streets? Portsmouth specifically had me make this slide, and I've left it in for now because they're undecided on sort of how to pursue a policy. They, by the way, had a resolution. They had a resolution to pursue a green and complete streets policy, but they've gotten that far, but they haven't decided sort of what form it's gonna take. So obviously, an ordinance is by far the strongest because it by law requires a process. It doesn't require that every street is going to have a bike lane and a sidewalk and the yada yada, but it's going to require a process, which I think is the most important thing imaginable. A resolution does next to nothing really, and then a policy is better, but it's not binding, so it doesn't genuinely establish like a real process, at least not by law. Maybe by practice, but that could fade like anything. So. So this is for Portsmouth especially, and I think maybe it sounds like you guys think this might be worth keeping in. This is really getting at the issue of working with RIDOT, and this sort of just covers like just basically the RIDOT Complete Streets law that they have. And so it does exist. In my opinion, RIDOT doesn't always follow their own law, but it does exist, and I think that's important because I think it's a tool. Because so I found this language. This is from Madison, Connecticut, which is a pretty small town, and so they're in a similar boat, right? Like their DOT has a complete streets law. I'm sure it's not rare for a state with a complete streets law to not have a real again a process to like really check boxes and prove if they're not making a street as safe as possible for bike ped concerns, that they have a reason for it. I think Connecticut's in that same boat as that we are. So what they've done in Madison with the highlighted portion here is they basically call out the complete streets law their state has. So then they say that at the bottom there, the CT-DOT complete streets policy shall be applied to all planning, design, construction, and major maintenance within state controlled right-of-ways in Madison, which I think is that's a really good language. It's sort of not, obviously you can't really bind the state to your ordinance, but you can certainly sort of like, I think this is one of the strongest things you can do in this situation. So I have this as an example of language to include in the jurisdiction portion of the ordinance, which is usually there's sort of the same sections in every complete streets ordinance with some exceptions. So I like to, again, this is toward the end, but I like to reiterate it's a philosophy and a flexible process. Again, as I've said, most of my presentation is just sort of to like calm down folks that are scared off by what they think this means rather than what it actually means. And I like to reiterate this one last time, and then that's it. So that's sort of the bare bones what I usually do. Again, I've taken out for this purpose the would you want to walk here portion. I do find that useful for public interaction. I don't know if it's necessarily as crucial if you're presenting this to like a elected board or anything like that. But I think that for the public interactions, it's pretty useful because it helps to just sort of, again, make it like a more of a feeling of like, I understand what walkability feels like and looks like. So I would be happy to put that section back in if that was desired.
I would like to see that section put back in.
Okay.
I think that's, I would, it really makes the point.
Great. Yeah, I'm happy to. I have it ready to go. So.
You ever have, would you want a bike here?
No, but I think that's a good one too. I find, yeah, we could do that too. That's a great idea actually, because they are different. I find that like walking is a good baseline to me. Walking, like if you want to walk somewhere, it's probably safe to bike. Whereas
Yeah.
places that are safe to bike might not necessarily be safe to walk, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's a good one too. I can throw a couple of those in there.
I imagine there are more walkers in the general public than bikers, so that makes.
Yeah, although I like actually was just part of a recent survey like around the state of kind of getting a sense of how people feel about biking during COVID and stuff. And it's amazing how high the percentages of folks that are interested in biking more, but that don't feel safe doing so, just because of what the infrastructure is in their neighborhood. So I think that you're right, but I think that that could change with, you know, this type of work that y'all are doing. And I think that putting that in the presentation could kind of harness those folks that are interested but don't feel safe.
Okay.
I absolutely agree, CJ. I think COVID's opened up a lot of opportunities, not only for our bike ped, but park, green infrastructure in general, and open space. So all the connectivity, I think could be an overall theme. But since we are the Bike Pedestrian Advisory Committee, you know, obviously we want to emphasize on our master plan what their thoughts are in moving forward. I mean, I know our bike path got a lot of use, which is wonderful. But I also had heard bits and pieces that it was so used that was a little intimidating, and there was a little bit of concern with non-mask wearing users, and was there enough distance and things like that. So once again, just try and tap into the opportunity of how can we create more opportunities and more safe areas. So thank you so much for that.
Yeah.
What I would like to ask everyone is, I think CJ has provided a great start, and I would love if everyone could take a moment between now and our next meeting to take some pictures that really hit home that you think would apply to our BPIP, that we could roll into this as specific examples in terms of photos, and then we can, you know, upload those. Kadri, I love your idea in terms of when you walk here, bike here options. I think that's great. And, you know, in terms of the master plan itself and presentation, I think concentrating on the BPIP itself will be great, but also in moving forward, perhaps we try and get feedback as well in terms of the overall theme and an overall plan, not necessarily for specific villages. And I think, you know, we're sneaking up on 7:30, and perhaps at a later date, our next meeting, we try it and take it to the next step. Like, I think this is a great start, but let's think about what else would we like to include in the presentation and questions as we approach for public input and feedback. What do you guys think?
Jen, I wanted to kind of wrap my brain around this discussion topic for the public engagement. So we had talked a while ago about having, you know, this is pre-COVID, having a series of neighborhood-oriented meetings or village-oriented meetings. What are your thoughts in regard to, I love CJ's presentation. Are we thinking we're going to have like one presentation that we can give over and over again with different, you know, village-specific elements, or are we going to have perhaps, you know, 5 variations of the same presentation, and we do that to 5 different groups?
Well, I know we've talked about this before, and at first I thought initially we would have them cater to each village specifically, especially as it relates to the village studies. But I think Jim had a very good point on let's just keep it simple, and let's just start with one simple presentation to everyone in all villages. And then once we get feedback, let's see what kind of feedback, who attends, how many, and then take it from there. And like, let's say one village is really underrepresented. Well, why is that? or maybe one's really represented, and that's a strength. So let's roll with that as well. And then we sort of cater to each one as we go ahead. I think these are great questions, Kenny, but I don't have any specific answers, just thoughts.
Do you think, I can understand during these times not focusing on the different villages, but what do you think about different stakeholders? So I'm thinking of like school population. I'm thinking of people who are without a car, transit users that may be in affordable housing, could be one group of stakeholders, another group, just how do we get our message out to as wide an audience as possible?
I can just say, I've given this presentation a few times to a few different types of groups of people. And I try my best each time to tailor it at least a little bit to each stakeholder. I think in my opinion, that's even more important than specific location, because if you have a group of 20 people and they have all similar concerns, you should harness that. So in my opinion, just having given this a few times, I find that makes a pretty big impact.
Okay.
Thanks, CJ.
And then I'd love to incorporate in our presentation some opportunity for a survey, or I don't know what everybody's thinking about in terms of what are we imagining the feedback opportunity is going to be. Does that include people just commenting at these meetings, or are we going to have a place to collect comments? If any of you think it's a good idea to have a survey as part of the feedback collection.
I think a survey is a great idea, because you never know, maybe one of the people that attend that will be one of your best advocates, and they might run with it from there and represent the community they serve. You just never know. So I think a survey, keeping it small and simple, is a great idea, Kateri. And contact information, and then keep including them in presentations moving ahead.
Okay.
I think
Along those lines, are we hoping to collect like contact information? Are we hoping to collect a listserv, or
How about if we talk about that?
what are you all picturing with that?
And Rich, how did Kayla do that when it came to affordable housing in the survey? I think perhaps something similar might be helpful and useful.
Yeah, I mean,
that's a big question. That was a big outreach, but
it was. And frankly, I don't know how she came out. I don't know what software she used for that, first of all, but I'm not sure how she developed a list of respondents.
well, we can circle back between now and the next meeting if you wouldn't mind trying to find out how that was.
I'll research what she
generated
did with that, and particularly what app or software she used for that.
Okay.
I mean, I can add, I sit on the Affordable Housing Collaborative. I think their focus is a little bit different than ours. They're a little more amorphous when they put out that questionnaire. We're at an interesting point because we have very discrete, tangible, real projects that are going to be happening this summer through public services. We've got an opportunity, this winter and springtime to do community outreach, to present our findings. I mean, we worked on this for a couple of years, and to get engagement. And I think Kateri's on the right track to solicit input and advice and feedback. I mean, that could be as simple as a Google form. I do this frequently with about 600 people that I work with on campus. I guess the question is, what are we trying to get out of it, out of this exercise? Because in my mind, we have, as of last month, we've reached a threshold with the master planning. Not to say that it's the end of the day, but now we have two different arms here, two different branches of our program. We're actually actively looking at doing some implementation, but we're also now into the community engagement part of this master planning, which I think is cyclical. It kind of feeds back into fine tuning what our assumptions were for those discrete projects in these neighborhoods.
Do you think this outreach and feedback will only help emphasize or not what we feel and have found that are priorities, and maybe there are different priorities based on those who are attending or things that we haven't even thought of yet that maybe to consider?
Yeah, it's all that. I think yeah, it's validation of the things that we had thought of, and you're right. It's also a safety net. If there are things that we're not aware of, we don't want to turn a blind eye to anything that's happening in a neighborhood or a certain cohort of the population that are driving regularly in the middle of the night or early morning, or not driving at all, and or just pure accessibility issues, things that we're not always thinking of. We need a platform for other people to weigh in.
I think I was just going to say, I think it's also a great opportunity to get, somehow tweak it where we're getting feedback, like you and Jen are just saying, but also buy-in where we can have support when certain things are up before the town council or whatever, that we can have community support and awareness of what's going on, so that it doesn't, that whatever, it's a positive movement forward that the town is excited about.
So Jen, I mean, that's great, Katie. I agree. Jen, in your mind, if we have funding that is reasonably going to be available this summer, we have, I don't know, let's say it's, and with respect to what Rich had said, if we start proposing things that are significant, it could require engineering or plans or permits. So in my mind, I think we have 5-6 months. Are you suggesting that we keep working with CJ and his template for a presentation, perhaps couple that with some sort of community feedback poll or form, and then what? We've got 3 months or so to start holding a few meetings before we then get back to work and turn over a series of a list of projects to public services for implementation. Is that where that could go?
I think our list, though, yes, there are plenty on that include RFPs and, professional services that are needed. However, I think there's an awful lot that is tape, paint, chalk, and of the like that I would like to tap into now and get public feedback now. Because I think once we get buy-in and once we get comfortable with, or not we get comfortable, but once, let's face it, once we get current staff, town council, residents, everybody on board with feeling comfortable and on the same page with certain elements of what our goals and are with this master plan, I think that will just, that may snowball into projecting us to those bigger projects that we will need more money. We will need more, the RFPs and things that go further. So I'm looking at more of what CJ was presenting. Let's just get started. I'm tired of talking about it. I want simple projects. I want them now. Let's get feedback. Let's sign up for 24 hours worth of, what do you guys think? Let's put it out there and let's do it.
It might,
Okay.
if I just can say one thing though, it might be that RFPs or something like that are happening on some of the bigger items. But, if you said that if something that comes out of a public, group is, well, a public meeting is, I have nowhere to put my bike when I get somewhere, or I have no, then bike racks or something, that can happen in a month and a half.
Yep.
So there are probably a lot of those little items that you have in your list that could be happening in Congress with an RFP that maybe takes care of the lion's share of the dollars. You know, there are some things that the town can install, you know, bike racks are something I would think that highway could work with us on. And then, you know, but there are some of the larger things, but I think everything happens in Congress. But you gotta know what they're listening.
I'm thinking Cards Pond and Matunic Beach Road. That intersection is huge. I've almost gotten T-bone there. And there are a lot of people walking and there are a lot of people biking. It would be nice to use that as a pilot project in terms of reflectors and paint and chalk. And that may lead into part of what the structural wall down at the Mist, and I mean sidewalks and parking down in that area it needs help. So that's only one, but go ahead, Kenny.
I think it's interesting. I think we're both saying the same thing. I'm saying it through the lens of a civil engineer. You're saying it through the lens of a landscape architect. You're a bigger thinker than I am sometimes, Jen. I am just drilling down into the timeline. That's all I'm doing. I'm being the taskmaster. The way I look at it is we're saying the same thing. If I had to work backwards, and if Rich reasonably would have the opportunity to get something procured, work with post qualifications on a contractor or a vendor, and actually do something this summer or fall, working backwards, we've got to have information to him by, June, late May, June, working backwards from there. We've got at least one or two meetings as a board or committee, working backwards from there. Again, we've got, I think to your earliest point, we should start going with this presentation based on what CJ had put together. We're presenting our master plan, our BPIP. We're talking about the concepts of complete streets, and then weaving in what Katie had suggested. Let's get a feedback mechanism built into this, this over the next 2 or 3 months, ways for the community to feed back into what we're suggesting. All of that follows a linear progression. There will be a simultaneous, Rich is going to give us an RFP for this more elaborate engineering analysis for traffic safety that's throughout the town, and that can go on its own separate path. There'll be other raw infrastructure projects that Public Services comes out with, and we'll react to those projects and weigh in, just like you said, Cards Pond and Matunic Beach Road, and the lion's share of the $6.5 million bond. We know that that's queued up, it's ready to go. In my personal opinion, I mean, I know we haven't, as a committee, we haven't taken that area up, and we need to.
I'd like to say something. I think what you're saying, Ken, is absolutely crucial, and I agree with Jen. And I think that the small projects get people's attention, and it establishes our credibility. The community buy-in is important, and it's relatively easy to do, assuming that what we're talking about with what CJ was talking about. So the small projects done now or soon builds up it establishes a momentum, and Katie is absolutely right. A survey designed right educates as well as gives you the opportunity to get feedback, and also educates the people who are filling out the survey. When you fill out a survey, you sort of have a buy-in right there. We can ask them if they want to help. I think that's my question then is, if we're going to go with Jen's recommendation about doing those small projects, like what will we do first, or how do we get that rolling?
Well, does it make sense to actually review the BPIP? Let's choose 3 projects. Let's cater these projects to this Complete Streets presentation. And as such, we'll just hone in on that. For example, let's say one was Village Green. So Peacedale Village Study, we We use that as an example, and crossing at the library and at the park and the playground. Matunic, that's another one. Middlebridge or Kingston. I mean, I think maybe we start with a specific, and then
So,
what do you
like,
guys?
we have a list in the BPIP. Then Jen, can I build off of what you just said? Then let each of us look at that and pick your top 3. And then let's put them at the next meeting and put them on, a piece of paper, so to speak, and just say, all right, 3 people voted for this one. That's the number one. Do we agree? And then just move that way. Because the list has been there. Paul assembled it. We've had it.
Right.
So I think, other things come up. Bill, you did your drive-bys and you have your things, I think. And we just make the case for our 3, but let's just start with that. And if there's 10 things on the list, we say, but through the voting process, these are the 3, let's go.
But Mel, what does that have to do with the survey? Anything? Like what's the point of the survey if
All right. So to your point, Rich, I think there's 2 things that are happening here. That's why I try to set up our agenda where there's action-oriented items, and then there's our master planning, which has a significant yet to be engaged, public discussion component. In my opinion, these 2 things can go simultaneously. And the reason why I say that is we need to start engaging the public. We have our BPIP, we have our master plan. We need to validate our assumptions. And at this point in time, honestly, there's no reason why we should discount anything that's on our BPIP. There's no reason why we should. We need to get it out there. We need to start hosting at least one public meeting, maybe several public meetings, depending on feedback. Get that public comment form in play. Let's hear from the public. The public they don't know about what we've done yet. On a parallel course, for committee work, if the committee wants to take up, honing in on the BPIP, and we all rank, our top 3, sure, we can do that. I still think we are a little bit at risk to implement any of those top suggestions without having some amount of feedback from those areas, those neighborhoods where we intend to do some improvements.
See, I don't, if I follow what we're talking about, what CJ mentioned and what Jen was talking about, it's not a risky thing. It's more of like an educational opportunity. So if something for the Peacedale Rotary, I would love to see what could be done there. A pile of people would say, oh, that's what they're talking about. Is this, everyone's flying along in their own world. I see this as a sort of an adjunct or an example. So, and I don't see it as undermining the opportunity to getting community feedback. I think the community may be more interested in giving us feedback when they see, oh, that's what they're talking about.
I agree with your point, Dave. However, having implemented projects where I was absolutely positive that I was doing the right thing, because I didn't reach out and talk to people in the community, I got zapped. So I don't think the difference between what we want versus how we get there is too far apart. I agree that there's likely going to be 3 or 4 or 5 projects where like these are slam dunks. That's not a problem. Guess what? We're not going to do any of them in December or January, February. So let's do community outreach in December, January, and February. Let's validate that. That gives us another month or so to do some internal follow-up work as committee, and then flip that information over to Rich and say, here it is. We've done our community feedback. We've chewed it up, and you should now have, the next 2 or 3 months to design, procure, and install, the plastic and paint. I think we're almost saying the same thing, but in my very linear mind, I have to do things, I'm sorry, I have to do things step by step, and I have to make sure I talk to the public. Because if I do something in somebody's backyard, and I don't talk to them about it, I guarantee you we're gonna get criticized. It happens.
No, I think
I
Jim's-
do,
oh,
I-
I'm sorry.
I
I'm sorry.
do, I just am going to say quickly that I do think that we can do two things at the same time. And I do think that while I agree with you, Kenny, it's important to take advantage of this time for public outreach. I do think that a pilot project could be considered part of public outreach. And I don't think any of these pilot projects, the point is that it's impermanent. So we choose a place that we hone in on and we put an impermanent project there, and then that acts as more public outreach and education of what is possible, and then get feedback from people if they like it or not.
I think we have demonstration of our impact on what happened with the big project downtown and even the South County Common Trail. We have recent things with COVID, they've been implemented. So I think it's shown. I can tell you, people in the Narrow River Preservation Association are very grateful for what happened on Tower Road. They were like, wow, right? And so I think we have some good things here. I just feel we're for the last few minutes, we're kind of going around on this. Can we schedule the public meeting?
Well, we talked about January because nobody, it's the holidays. So
Okay.
nobody's going to
Can
want
we
to get
pick a
together
date
in
now
December.
or soon that we could put it public so we start sharing it?
Well, all right. So this brings us to 5B3, right, Kenny? In terms of marketing, social media, town website, newspaper, etc. So Katie, I thought your idea of putting an article out, what's it called when you put it out to the newspaper?
Yeah,
Press release.
I know, I get it.
The word,
Press release, yeah.
putting that
Press
out.
release.
Yes, press release.
Yeah, yeah.
So a press release, Town of South Kingstown, putting it on the website. Let's go to like Belmont, put posters up, Stedman's, the bike path, South County Commons. Let's start posting this and when I say this is after the holidays. So how about if we, try and schedule something for the end of January?
All right, so our meetings are third Thursday of the month, so that is, what is that date? January 21st. January 21st is our normally scheduled meeting. Again, I tend to work backwards, so yes, let's for the sake of discussion say January 21st. We need to see what's being presented. I guess we have homework over the next, month? Bring us to just before the holidays.
Rich, how much time would you need to be able to put things on the website and put things together?
Well, while you're talking, I was already thinking that I think it's easy enough to get something at least on Facebook.
I can't hear you through your microphone. It's muffled.
On the town Facebook, we can certainly get something up. That can happen tomorrow.
Wow.
So if I can get things in order, it'll happen tomorrow, but it's already on the town website. I'd like to see it maybe more prominent, maybe on the initial page. It could be something like that. I don't know if they do that. I don't think they do, frankly, the town. But there are places I can look. Let me talk to the town manager's office and I'll find out.
Okay.
So Jen, I was going to suggest that, if we gave ourselves a month to get those local screenshots, to kind of round out the base presentation CJ has put together. That's just before the Christmas holiday. Would we want to have confidence of our presentation at least 3 weeks before? So by January 1st, does that make sense to you?
CJ, it's the holidays. after, like maybe January 5th, 6th, something like that? Would that do a special meeting?
So I'm not sure what I'm understanding. Is CJ doing the presentation or are we?
Good question.
Well, he's,
I'm happy to do it.
Well, I would, first of all, thank you, Jen and CJ for the offer. I think it'd be amazing if CJ could assist and do the presentation. I think, to give it the local flavor, I mean, CJ is the lead. I think it comes with, credibility from an outside source. GrowSmart is a trusted, organization in the state. I do see the BPAC being very active in the after presentation section, right? When we start to segue from the core philosophies of why Complete Streets is great, and then we start, hopefully we have people joining in on the meeting, and we can start, drilling down into, some of these recommendations that we have.
So then the presentation is Complete Streets, and by the way, there's a BPAC master plan? Is that what we're saying?
I think
I
includes both. No, I mean, our mission and vision and our master plan includes verbiage of Complete Streets. So I think that's a lead in, and it's also our next step. I think, as Kenny, to his point, to have the local flavor of our streets and images, and I think that would be the lead in as to the BPIP and addressing those things. But Jim, do you have, I mean,
Well, I look at it as we're presenting the master plan. We're saying that what went into it from the standpoint of residents within the town. And yeah, if CJ's there, great. And I think we can leverage some of his slides, but we just say it employs these key concepts. But I almost see it's like the tail wagging the dog. Our dog is the plan, and Complete Streets is a part of that we want to embrace. And we can use CJ's presentation to show it's been successful in places like Newport and other places. But I go back to, if it's the survey, and if it's, well, we need to hear from you. What do you need in South Kingstown to make it more like Complete Streets? Or what's your beef on your street or your thing? I don't know. I look at it as it's South Kingstown centric for me.
I would look at this as a shakedown cruise or whatever. I mean, so we're going to do more than one, and I wouldn't worry about it being perfect. Let's just do it, right? I agree with you, Jim, and there's no reason why CJ can't do a presentation or a pieces for seeing, a larger state connection. But yeah, it is the South Kingstown plan, but the core element is Complete Street, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Right.
Well, Jen, I mean, if I took a step back, I know that one of our goals as we're producing the master plan was, again, to have public engagement. So, I mean, maybe we want to just take a step back and just understand how we integrate CJ's presentation into our obligation to get public feedback on the master plan.
I think it might be a good introduction and give the general public a broader point from which to start. And then we head into our specific town focus. So, especially because our town has already, we have a resolution, which, as CJ's presentation points out, is kind of weak at best, to just give it a greater context for the average person to kind of understand and just get the language down of Complete Streets. And then we move in to South Kingstown, and here's our master plan, and this is what we're looking at for South Kingstown.
So to that point, Kittery, would that, maybe we would have CJ do the Complete Streets introduction, again, with some local pictures woven in. Would we then segue to something similar to like what Jen and I produced or presented to the council last month?
I think that's
Yeah,
really-
I think the introduction could be pretty short. You know, it's just kind of giving the general public an idea of the overview.
it's in our vision. The BPMP incorporates complete streets philosophies, which encourages the town of South Kingstown to provide for the needs of all users, et cetera, et cetera. It's on page 2. So I think if CJ is the intro, and just like you guys are saying, then we, take the next step into having it formulate around specific things in the town, that would be great. Thoughts? All right, cool.
I think in terms of hosting a public meeting, I think we would all do ourselves a favor by understanding how much time we're going to give CJ for a presentation, and then we'd immediately segue into the South Kingstown specific discussion, how much time that is, and leave ample time for the community engagement, and it all has to fit under 60 minutes. People have burnout, so. I think it's all achievable. I think what CJ has put forth makes a ton of sense. It brings credibility to the discussion. It's a great way to kick off the presentation. And then I think we just have some just enough information on what our master plan is and what the BPIP is. Jen, I think it's going to be similar to what you and I had already presented to the council, and then. Really, then that's when you kind of turn the tables, and then you hopefully again there's people on the other side of the screen. Then we start a conversation about like the top 3 projects we intend to do this summer. The paint and plastic.
Who's going to answer the questions assuming that there are people on, and as long as we show up with our uniforms on, that's the first thing, right? But who will answer the questions from the public?
I think all of us will, but I think it would be important to have Rich and Rob present as well.
Okay, cool.
No, I mean, I'd be happy to answer any sort of general complete streets, questions.
Great.
See, I don't know, guys. I mean, let's get it going. I think, as Dave said, to get something going. But I think any question is going to be about my neighborhood.
Yeah.
I mean, anybody from my street here is going to be, what are you doing about putting a bike lane on Middlebridge? Obviously, we aren't, but the point is, that's what I see the questions being. Here's what's going on here. My kids can't ride their bike, or, you're going to see, like the picture that CJ showed and say, when do you put a sidewalk there? That's fine. I think what we say is, if I got that, Dave, I would just say, duly noted, and we'll add it to the BPIP. You need a sidewalk there. Great. You want a bike? We got it. And we'll do our best to keep it in there and integrate it. And then if we come back to them in a month or two, working with Rich, and say paint and plastic works, we'll report back. If not, we say, per whatever it's in the plan.
I think one of the most important things, though, is hearing the people say, this is what I want. This is what we need. And getting that community engagement is very crucial to our next step. So absolutely, Jim. Let's bring it on. Let's make that list. And
I think more important is, here's the plan, because they're not, to Ken's point, we're going to present 15 minutes or something. Go home and read it. Or if anybody read it before, that's great. And it's for reference. And now when something comes up, here's how you get us. And I think that's the more important thing. I can just tell you from the Narrow River stuff, I just wrote an article on hunting and people didn't know what was going on with hunting. And these are people that have lived here for 50 years. And they said, no, there's no firearm hunting in Narrow River. I said, excuse me, I hear it in the morning. There are. So, it's just things like that.
I think to your point, Jim, it might be important for us to specify what we are, who we are, and what we're capable of accomplishing, because the group of us are not capable of putting in sidewalks. So we have to be clear in terms of expectation, and we're kind of the conduit from the town folk to the town
Yeah, and
employee.
I think with Rich being here and Sergeant Souza, we've gone a long way for when issues come up, like the accidents here on Middlebridge. We do have now a conduit to do things, and God forbid, but they're going to be tomorrow. And how many did Rob say? We have basically 3 a day or something in the town.
9,000 in 5 years.
But guys, we are a committee that evaluates and makes recommendations to the town council.
Right.
We are also, our mission is to promote what we're doing, and through education and outreach. And this is an outreach effort. So absolutely, as much as we can clarify and be that conduit, that's our mission. So you're absolutely right, Kater. We can't, we're just here to be the sounding board and to help facilitate. And if the more we can do that, then I think the more the town council will hear and then potentially promote.
And I think that is our role, Jen, is we are the advocates for pedestrian and bicycle issues here. And I think that's why I feel good with Rich and Sergeant Souza being here, and that's great. And that's what we need to keep pushing those buttons when needed.
Absolutely. Yep.
And so I think that's it. And that's why until COVID's over, I think just doing this one in January is a big step. And then depending on what the health emergency is, if we do another one in March when people are starting to be outside, and that's all we do. And then until COVID's done, we don't go to Peacedale or go to the neighborhoods. It's fine.
Oh yeah, I mean, I didn't anticipate anything but Zoom.
Yep.
In terms of pilot, at the very earliest, I thought summer or fall, but even then, that's a wait and see.
So that's
Are
why
you guys planning to do the public outreach meeting in January?
Well, Jen had suggested that, and I suggested coupling, CJ's presentation with something that is unique to the BPAC and the BPIP.
That's fine. And are you planning to meet in December?
I am if you guys are.
What's the date?
It's 17th.
17. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't have a big
But I was going to say, if you weren't planning to meet in December, I would say you got to make some real hard decisions right now about what happens in January and how the outreach is going to happen. But I think you got to, we can put it on Facebook, but what is the actual process of getting people to show up to a meeting?
Well, I think that's my point of making sure that we have there's got to be content. I think it's important 3 weeks out from the meeting to have something that we can publish. Not just the date and the time. We have our our master plan. We have the BPIP. We should have, something that's, social media publish worthy, just a single page to describe the event. We have a guest presenter from Grow Smart to review Complete Streets. And then the BPAC is going to be presenting their master plan and some very neighborhood specific improvements. And we need your feedback.
So can that presentation be ready for the 17th of December and to be tweaked and, nearly final, but tweaked? And can any flyers or anything like that that's going to be put around town Can that be ready for the 17th?
I think that's the goal. The idea is the final polishing has to happen basically over Christmas and New Year's, because the first week of January, we need to have something that's published, that'll be just shy of 2.5 weeks before the actual meeting.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, Ken, I don't know that we need the presentation then. I mean, but what you just said is the flyer. You just said the flyer. And I think the sooner we get the date on the calendar and start listing it and get the flyer out, the better we are. So if it went out December 1st, I think that's good to let people know and just say, and here's the link to the plan if you want to go look at it. And then in December 17th, if we want to say, all right, we just put the slides together, because you already had the slides for the town meeting and CJ had his slides. I don't know. I don't see this being that much more. I see it being 25 slides. But we don't need to publish that till the presentation, in my opinion.
Well, but you might all want to look at it before the presentation. So what I'm saying is it probably
17th meeting.
But okay, so at the 17th, it would need to be ready, right?
Yeah.
Right.
At least the draft, and then we
At
there
least,
say,
right.
yeah, I like it. Do it.
Okay, do you want a link to the master plan to be something on Facebook, to be highlighted on Facebook now, or do you want to wait until you're ready to really start drumming up support? I wouldn't want people to see it now and then on January 1st say, I've already seen that, and not think about the public meeting that would be happening. That would be more of a.
I mean, the master plan and the BPIP are done. They are going to be updated as we get more information. So I would rather, for those people that are interested, I'd rather have people start looking at it now. The sooner the better. And, honestly, if there are lightning rod issues that we just missed, I'd like to hear about it. I'd like to know, either adding things or taking things out. The sooner the better.
Can we say if Rich sends out something now and the first public meeting will be on that date in January, and all we just say is the meeting's going to be that date? Can we say that now? I just feel if you're going to send out a notice about the plan, I think it's fine to just put another sentence, and we're going to have a public comment meeting.
And that you're right, and that's sort of what I'm getting at is that it would be nice if that went with the whole, if there's going to be a graphic or there's going to be something, but it went as one thing that said, this is what's happening. It doesn't sound like the decision on what that is going to happen until December 17th.
I agree. I think we should assemble something specific and then vet it.
And do a blast.
And
but to Ken's point also is that it could go up right away and hey, here's a link, more information to come. And then on the 17th or the 1st of January, you throw up something that's a little more of here we go. We're going to really roll it out. It's going to happen on January 21st. It could go up tomorrow, but at least maybe you do begin to drumming up some support. I just don't want to say a lot about it right now. I just say, here's the master plan. We can put it up on the Facebook and I can run some, if anybody wants to write something and send it to me, please do that. Don't send it to everybody, send it to me. And then we can put that up on Facebook right away, but it's something that's a little drummed down. And then on the 1st, it's a big rollout. And that's.
How about if we do save the date? Put the master plan out now, like Kenny had mentioned, and Jim, and the sooner the better for people to review it. Mention public outreach, save the date for public outreach, agenda to come. Does that sound okay?
Yeah, I like that.
And it's January 21st. Is that what we're going for? Was that the date we decided on?
That would be the January meeting.
Okay.
Ken, did you want to write something up on that and send it to me?
Yeah, I mean, if it's okay, if you'll allow Jen and I to coordinate.
Yeah, I would do that. I'd prefer that because you guys are going to be more familiar with maybe some of the points, the finer points of the master plan. So, and then I'll try to get something up on the Facebook page in short order so it happens. over the
Okay.
next week. At least give me the next week anyways. It always takes time to get things done.
Yes, it does.
And it'll be a link. It'll be a link to the master plan, but we could have an image of the cover or something like that.
That sounds
then-
great.
And then if you can get it on the calendar, Rich, I think that's good to just somehow say we're having a regular meeting with the public content on that date as soon as possible. So if someone's, if they're bored over Christmas, they're looking at it, they could say, oh, there's this public meeting on the bike plan.
All right. That's amazing. I don't, those three items under 5B were all kind of mashed together. I think we have consensus about what we're doing. So I would love to move on to item 6. Yeah, and I want to be cognizant. I know, Caterer, you wanted us to talk about the bike path crossing at 138. So if we can do that under item 7, that'd be great. But item 6, I wanted to let everybody know that I had a meeting on campus. I invited Rich Bourbonnais, several representatives from Kingston Fire District, Union Fire District, to go out and review some striping, some paint. This is an example of what you can do with a lot of paint, and some asphalt. We installed, I want to say 7 or 8 speed tables throughout Flag Road and West Alumni. Installed sharrows. We've got the portable pedestrian crossing, caution, speed table signs out in these areas, and we introduced on-street parking in these very wide, 40-foot wide road corridors. There was a concern from the local fire departments that using speed tables was going to inhibit their response time. So we took the time to go out and meet with them and drive the area with their rigs. And I think we both came away learning quite a bit. Number one, fire trucks will go where they need to go as fast as they want to get there. They prefer not to bottom out, and they demonstrated that they can get through some of these areas by kind of cheating, going to the side, having one, their passenger side tires kind of straddle off of the speed tables. But more importantly, we did understand that if we lengthened some of the speed tables, our speed tables are about 10 foot long on the top. If we went to 12 foot, maybe 15 foot long, then that would provide a better parabolic crossing or maneuvering of the long tanker trucks as they went up and over the speed tables. So we would get the benefit of the sharp incline on both sides to slow regular traffic down, but then have the longer speed tabletop so that the fire trucks could continue to go over at what they call response speed, 10 to 15 miles an hour, 20 miles an hour max. Jim showed up, was a trooper and had his scooter. He went over the speed tables at full response speed as well. And it was kind of an after the fact type of assessment. I didn't do this beforehand. I didn't just build one speed table. We did them all because we had to prepare some quick COVID compliant parking, and that gave rise to this opportunity. So I just wanted to share that information with the group. Under the item 7, other items of interest, catering, again, I know that you had asked to talk about the bike path crossing on 138. Did you want to share your thoughts?
Oh, I know we've discussed this crossing before, and I know, Kenny, it sounds like there's some movement on your end in terms of improving it. But I think I shared, maybe with too many people, that that I was present when there was an accident there. I was riding my bike, waiting for the crossing to, waiting to cross, and a car stopped for me and then got rear-ended, and then a third car rear-ended the second car. So just a great example of that crosswalk being kind of imperfect. And then later talked to some women who are walking, and they were saying, oh my gosh, we walk it every day and it's just kind of crazy. So I know, Kenny, you shared with me some ideas of, or some movement that's happening already at that cross, and that a lot of people have noticed that there could be improvements. So you might have more to add than that. Was just my personal experience. And when I've been in the car driving eastbound, that the curve before the crossing is, you come around that curve and then all of a sudden there's all these lights, and it's just kind of, even as a driver who knows to expect it, it's a confusing, whatever. It's a confusing crossing.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, I can add to that in that this is a good example. I think Rich had been forewarning us in terms of some of the paint and plastic projects that we might want to undertake. Everything needs to be looked at with kind of a jaundiced eye. It really depends, what you do and where you do it and how you do it. That bike path crossing was something that was heavily scrutinized before we finalized designs. A lot of opposition to it, and ultimately we did gain. We being the community, as well as the State Department of Transportation and the State Traffic Commission. Everybody supported it. Nobody thought that it would have the problems that it's having right now. So
Actually, Ken, I remember seeing that, and I think a couple other people on the BPAC looked at it and said, that curve's going to be a problem. The line of sight and the students driving really fast. So good luck to us all. I've seen people go, one time I saw a car blow right through when the light turned red with people standing ready to cross. So it's a tough one. Yeah.
Yeah, and Dave, so I wish it was that simple, because hopefully I'd get my curve straightener tool and I'd straighten out.
What we're suggesting was move it, and I can understand why you didn't want to go through Peckham Farm. Yeah, there's a way. Yeah.
But what I was going to say is that we've got some more feedback from the design agent, and there's actually more problems with the pedestrians and bicyclists on average observed. Honestly, it's bizarre. It's a comedy of errors, and it's not funny. If you're a jogger, if you're a bicyclist, you're very much less likely to stop and press the pedestrian head signal button, especially in this rural area where there's nothing but literally dead people in the cemetery or the sheep in Peckham Farm. There's nothing else there, so people take their lives in their hands on a regular basis. It's a problem.
Yeah.
But one thing I can say, because this is actively being discussed, I actually have a discussion with my vice president about it tomorrow morning. There will be follow-up actions and decisions on this. It's I think that tying back to what I was saying earlier with one of Rich's perspectives here, we need to come up with some of these BPIP implementation suggestions and give them to Rich. Rich's obligation as the town engineer to then further scrutinize them. He'll give us guidance as to whether or not we need additional engineering or other professional assessments to implement projects, because this bike path crossing at 138 is a good example on how you can have a slew of professionals stand up and say, this is okay. It meets all the warrants. Let's do it. And then Catering and myself and many, many other people sit there and say, no, nope, doesn't
Can I-
work.
Can I add something, Ken? I think that crossing is really neat. I like it personally. I think it works well, but there's an education issue. I think that's what you're saying is that, pedestrians as well as motorists don't know what to do. In fact, I didn't know what to do the first time I encountered it when somebody crossed. Flashing yellow, do I go? Solid yellow, do I stop? I stop. It was great. Then it started flashing red, and then my head went into a spin. But then you read it, and then I know, and I'll know next time I go. It's an education thing. The only issue that I have really, and I think it actually is a really neat light. I think it's really kind of cool, but it's just that it's a one-off. If there were 5 in town, we would have it would be a much easier conversation. It's a one-off, and it's the same thing. I have a problem with Main Street, and I listened to the meeting where you guys had Prestera on, and that was a really good meeting, by the way. But I think the bigger issue on Main Street is that in 500 feet, you have 3 different types of crossings. One with flags, one with a regular crossing, one with a light. It's just confusion. That's the only problem. It's just continuity is the key. If we had 5 more of those lights down on 138 in town, I think that it'd be fantastic. If we had one on South Road, would be another good spot for that.
Rich, I think
One-
that
You might
one
discuss
thing
that
that-
in the master plan. Or Curtis Corner Road, right? Don't you have that as a, but anyways, that's my opinion.
Rich, one of the challenges for that the light on 138 is that is a state road and it's a crossing for people from Connecticut are driving through and whatever. There's lots of people that's their they don't. It's not if it was just a regular town folks going through there. You can see that educational
Well,
part, but
That's very true.
Yeah.
We always have to take into account the tourists around here, but still,
Right.
the majority of the people that cross that are crossing other ones in town. I would say that the majority of the people that cross it daily, are people from town. And you mix those people in with the tourist, and now people who are tourists maybe understand a little bit better. I think it's just a different light. That's the only problem. It's nice when somebody walks up, pushes the button, I know right away what to do. Because that light changes immediately. It's real nice. It's convenient.
I think what's
But-
also unique about that road is the only light that's on 138 between 95 and the campus is Route 2, and then there's that. So there's not a lot of traffic lights in between 95 and the
Yeah,
college.
There's also Ministerial Road, and but you're
Upper
right.
College Road, Upper College.
No,
Yeah.
well, that
You're right, you're right.
that traffic light, the bike path light.
Yeah, well,
That's
the only
the-
light,
That's the only hawk signal from Connecticut to Mass,
Yeah, right.
Well,
It's the only pedestrian, even flashing light. It's the only pedestrian light on all of 138.
right.
The problem that I encountered that we talked about with Main Street and the crossing near the post office was the problem at this crosswalk is where I push the button to cross, and then I think a driver stopped for me to cross before it was my turn to go. So a driver stopped out of courtesy to let me go, and then that caused the accident. And that's definitely happened to me a number of times where the driver stops for me, and then if I say, oh no, you go, I've had people get angry and no, I stopped for you, blah, blah, blah. So I think I'm not sure how we address that, but I think that oftentimes if the pedestrian or walker doesn't get an immediate signal change, it becomes confusing. And so I think the answer to that is a walker or pedestrian pushes the button and the light turns as quickly as possible.
I'll suggest this. Just know that I'm pushing the design agent really, really hard, almost to the point of being rude. Although I know you guys find that hard to believe, but I have a good working relationship with them. So I am pushing them really hard. We have supplemental information and assessments. It is a little more complicated than what we're talking about. The good news is Power Engineering has started to, they use video of that intersection over a 4-hour period, and they've broken down the infractions, the various infractions from both the pedestrian and driver's side, and we're actively talking about how we can continuously make changes to that signal to make it safer. And if that wasn't enough, with the windstorm we had a couple of days ago, a pine tree fell down and hit the damn signal, and almost took the whole thing out. So it's a little shaquat, it's a little sideways right now, and I'm trying to get DOT out there to straighten it out.
That
So-
might have solved the whole problem.
Right.
This has to be one of our longest meetings. So, Kater, did you have any other comments on that item?
No,
Okay.
I want to go.
All right. Is there anything else anybody wanted to discuss?
One more thing.
Yes.
This is my last meeting because I won't be on the BPAC after this, because I have I have another engagement and involvement in more adventures. So I will be sending a letter to the town council and moving on. So, all of you.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Thank you, Bill.
Nice
Thank
work.
you,
Can
Bill.
you share with us where you're going or no?
Ooh, can't tell you. It's a secret. No. It's just the other organization I'm involved with is taking up a lot of time, and time management is very important. It's 8:38 at night. So
Okay.
Well, good
Congratulations,
luck,
Bill.
Bill.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What, Bill?
Great.
All right. The next meeting we said was what, December 17th? Okay. 6 o'clock. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, Bill, would you like to second it?
I'll love to second it.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Congrats, Bill. Thank you. And
Thanks,
thank you,
everybody.
CJ.
Hi.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Good working with you, Bill.
See you, folks.
Thank you.
Bye.
Oh, what happened to CJ?